The Chimney Sweeper. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry. Weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's a little Tom Dacker who cried with his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. So I said, "Hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair."
And so he was quiet in that very night. As Tom was asleeping, he had such a sight. The thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun.
Then, naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark, and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm.
So identifying the speaker, he's a man, probably in his 20s or 30s, because he's looking back on his childhood. And then you can infer that he's probably in the lower class because he worked as a chimney sweep, and the upper middle class did not have to do low-paying jobs like that. We can infer that the speaker doesn't have a very good childhood because his mother died when he was very young, which is very traumatic for any child, and his father sold him off to work, so to work at a very young age in horrible conditions. And then the poem was written in 1789 and published in 1794. And it was prompted by the condition of chimney sweeps. They had horrible conditions, and he's recollecting the experience of being his childhood and being a chimney sweep. So that's the context.
Alright, so there's no intended audience for this piece specifically. The purpose behind the text, the author wrote to express his experience of being a chimney sweep, especially at such a young age, and having to be put in that position due to his financial circumstances, his family's. What is the message? So the message through the dream that Tom had, it talks about suffer now and be rewarded in the afterlife. And during the time period this was written, in the late 1700s, this was definitely, that was the frame of thinking in Western European or Western European influenced society, because it was heavily Christian, and that was their mindset. What is the topic? The author talks about a boy named Tom, his dream. He worked with Tom as well as other little boys like Nick, Joe, Ned, and Jack. And is there more than one subject? Yes, so it talks about, in the very beginning, it talks about the author's family situation, and then it goes into talking about the kids that he worked with, but primarily Tom Dacker. And then the middle part talks about specifically Tom's dream. And then towards the end again, it was about Tom.
What is the attitude of the author? Well, the author is remembering. Is the author emotional, objective, neutral, or biased about this topic? The author is emotional, but it's mostly, this is about remembering his childhood, his past. The overall tone is remembering, though there are multiple tones in this poem. The beginning of the poem is melancholy because he talks about how his mother died. He was really sad. He said he was sold into chimney sweeping, though that is actually a hyperbole because he wasn't literally sold. His dad told him he had to go to work. But being a child, he probably felt like his dad just sold him off. There's also an alliteration in here on this phrase right here. It's sweep, in suit I sleep, so those all start with the same letter. Then down on this stanza, the tone switches to more playful. because he's talking about making fun of Tom because he's just making fun of Tom, saying that he can't mess up his hair because it's shaved, so it's playful. This part is where they actually go into the dream, Tom's dream. This tone is, well, dreamy. There's an allusion to death right here, locked up in coffins of black. There's diction calling the key bright. There's imagery right here down in the green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun. That is imagery, and it shows that picture very clearly in your mind. There's imagery here when he says naked and white. And a religious reference is when it says God for his father. So that's referencing Christianity, as we said earlier, because that was a really big part of their lives back in this time period. And then down here, the tone shifts back more to more hopeful and wishful, because it's basically saying that they don't need to worry anymore because they know that they will go to heaven and be happy. So, like when they die, they don't need to worry about it anymore.